Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, and as we build ever closer towards the Scottish Cup final this weekend against Aberdeen, we're putting our conversation around that match on the back burner just for today, as we have a few other stories to talk about, all of them actually concerning strikers. We have to talk about Celtic's striker situation going into the summer, but before all of that, we have to talk about Giakoumakis, a player who I have grown quite tired of talking about in recent years. I've tried to accept that that period of time was done and we've moved on from it. But he hasn't ruled out the possibility of playing for Celtic once more, which has got everybody talking today. So we're going to look at his interview from today earlier on, and we're going to talk about a couple of options moving into the summer window as well. So bear with me and we'll talk about all of that. If you haven't already, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. It would be much appreciated. We are now around 500 subs away from the big 50k. Let's get as close as we can before the Scottish Cup final this weekend. It would be much appreciated. It's all free. It's all down below. Let's get into today's video. So Giakoumakis, his name is doing the rounds this afternoon after he revealed in an exclusive interview with the Daily Record this afternoon that he would love to play for Celtic again, that his move away from the club hurt him deeply, and he would love to put on the hoops one more time. Will that ever happen? It's a completely different conversation and we'll come on to that. But yeah, he had a tell-all interview with the Daily Record over the past couple of days where he basically dived into his exit from the club, his relationship with Ange Postecoglou, and the prospect of playing for us once again in the future, which has got all the same conversations going that I have tried to dodge in every transfer window since he left, and that's whether or not he could be a Celtic player once more. Now, if you remember rightly, back at the time, I was a huge fan of Giakoumakis. Even for a long time, I was one of the, which now seems many Celtic fans, it seemed few at the time, but one of the many what it seems now Celtic fans who actually preferred Giakoumakis to Kyogo, just because I was a fan of a big physical striker. It was always what I sort of leaned towards when it came to systems in football, and he was a really good player. He scored goals, he knew how to rough up defenders when needed. I just thought he was really someone solid, and I thought left far too prematurely. We knew there were circumstances surrounding his exit. Ultimately, Kyogo was just too good to dislodge from his starting spot, and that came with the price of him wanting to move on and advance his career. However, the curse that came alongside that is the fact that every time we're talking about signing a striker, it brings up the age-old question, it feels now, of should we bring Giakoumakis back? Why did we ever let him go? We missed Giakoumakis. Let's re-sign Giakoumakis. And as I thought that conversation was quietly dying a death, now we've got him adding fuel to the fire, and he's going to bring it all up again this summer, isn't he? Because this morning, Giakoumakis sat down with the Daily Record for an exclusive interview saying that he would love a sensational return to Celtic as this transfer door has been left open for him. So there's a lot to read through in this interview, and I don't want to go through it quote for quote because we'd literally be here all day when you can sit and watch the interview for yourself. But I'm going to dive over the important parts. I'm going to discuss and give my opinion at the end of it. We have a lot to dive in about, especially a lot revealing his relationship with Ange Postecoglou. If you remember at the time, there was reports that came out saying that he had a fractured relationship with the boss, that was one of the reasons that he might have left. But ultimately, I always assumed it was down to him just wanting more first-team football. So he's given more clarification on that, but he has lifted the lid on his Parkhead exit for the first time in what they call an explosive interview with Record Sport. So here were the three main talking points that Giakoumakis opened up on. Why he wanted to leave at the end of his first season with the club, his fragile relationship with Ange Postecoglou and Michael Nicholson, and why he finally decided to quit and move to America in that transfer window. Of course, now 30 years old, playing with Cruz Azul. He's made it clear he would jump at the chance to re-sign for Celtic at any point. In fact, here is his fiery quote where he said, "If you want to set the fire, I would love to play for Celtic again. I don't know if that's a utopia or if it could happen again, but who wouldn't?" So he's made it clear, if the chance ever appeared, he would take it. He went on to say, even if you don't know what it feels like to be there, when you've already been there, you know exactly what it means. If someone was asked if they would want to play for Celtic again in a couple of years, and he said, no, he's a stupid guy. He's so dumb. So yeah, I would love, love, love to wear this jersey again. I don't know if this circle is done for me, but yeah, that's my truth. He even went on to draw comparisons with teammate Jota, of course, played together in Ange's maiden season, and beyond that, of course, as well, saying that when he saw Jota coming back, I've just thought about his position, how amazing it would feel to get there again. He went to Saudi, he went on loan to France, he probably wasn't happy in any of these places, so he's not pulling any punches here. He looks as though he's advertising himself to try and get a move back to Celtic. So as I've already said, this has brought up the conversation as to whether or not Celtic should be in about this in the summer transfer window, because it certainly does feel like, and I think you would be naive to suggest it doesn't sound like he's advocating for a move or trying to make something happen. Whether or not Brendan Rodgers has any interest, or if the club have any interest to bring him back, is a completely different story. But this isn't the kind of thing that you come out and say when you're at a club, when you're playing football somewhere, if you don't want to add fuel to what could be a dying fire. Because it felt like that. It felt like we were kind of giving up on the whole Giakoumakis thing. When we seen him move over to Cruz Azul, there was conversations as to whether or not that's a bigger club than Celtic to play for, and why he's going there and not coming back here. At the end of the day, money plays a big part in it, and he's open about that in the second part of the interview, the second half of the interview. But it does feel like he's saying, Celtic, come and get me. I'm willing to come back. Kyogo's gone. Get me in. I'll finish the job that I started, which is going to be a bit of a burning question over these next 2 weeks. And I just want to say very quickly, I don't see Celtic acting on this, and call me a killjoy if you like. And I said I'm a huge fan of the guy. I really, really liked him. I just don't see it happening. Now, he's not done bad going away over to America and Mexico. He's actually done pretty good. But I just think now that he's entering his 30s, now that Celtic have spent big money on a striker and probably have other options out there anyway, I don't think Giakoumakis is pretty high up on the list of targets for Celtic. I don't think he's exactly in the radar. And I know we went back and got Jota, who didn't play under Brendan Rodgers, who had no affiliation to him or his former Celtic team. But I just think that Brendan will see other options and look elsewhere, knowing that he's got a big window ahead of him and needs to bring in someone. I just don't think it'll be him. And if I'm being brutally honest, I don't think it should be. He left justified why he left. I'm not saying that he shouldn't have done what was best for his career. I think he acted in the best interest of himself, and that is completely fair. But I just think, you bring him back and it doesn't work, then you've acted on sentimentality and it's been a complete waste of time. But I think that him being into his hitting 30 now, which is not an old age for a footballer. I hate when people say that when you hit 30 you're done. I just think that Celtic have other options out there they could bring in and spend their money more wisely. But it's certainly one that I wouldn't kick up a fuss about if we did act on it. Like, I'm just saying that I'm not all in on it, and I don't think the club will be all in. I think the only reason I'm not all in on it is because I do wholeheartedly believe that the club won't bother about this and won't act on it. So I think that's why I'm not that bothered. But if something did come out that Celtic had made an inquiry, I wouldn't cry, because at least we know he knows how to score goals at Celtic. And I'm sure that'll be the biggest talking point, that, well, would you not rather sign a player that knows how to get the job done, that knows what it's like to play for Celtic, that has proven he can score goals for Celtic? I'm sure that will be one of the bigger talking points. So it'll come with pros and cons, as does any signing. And the biggest pro with Giakoumakis is that we've seen him doing it here before, and we've seen him doing it in big games and big competitions. So I don't know, man. I don't know, but he does have a lot of red flags, is what I'll say. He doesn't seem like the kind of player that wants to keep himself grounded in one place. And even though he's going on about his love for Celtic and wanting to come back to Celtic at some point, I mean, he was basically, I think he was at Atlanta United for less than a year. He's barely been at Cruz Azul, and now he's clamoring on about how much he'd want to come back to Celtic. I don't think this is a long-term striker solution for Celtic, and that's where I think I get more of my worries. And in the second part of the interview, he does open up more about his exit, and especially his relationship with Ange Postecoglou. He said at the end of his first season, after winning the league and the top league scorer trophy, he called his agent and said that we need to go. And the agent was surprised. He said, "What do you mean? We shouldn't be leaving, blah, blah, blah." And he was certain that he had to go, and I think that was because he knew, and in fact I think it's because he goes on to say he knew that he just wasn't going to get the chances that Kyogo was getting. And after being top scorer and after enjoying the successes that he did, for him not to be the guaranteed starting striker, that seems to be what really got to him. But he did say his relationship with Ange Postecoglou was fractured, was fragile. It was the exact word that he used, which basically meant he went on to get a new agent, and that move in the January transfer window, as we all know. He said that there was a connection between Kyogo and the manager that he just didn't have. So maybe Ange was preferring the false nine with Kyogo. So he had a feeling of what was going to happen. And it was only the fans that kept him at a good level coming from the bench and from scoring. So he was really lacking motivation by the sound of things. As I said, I don't fault him for moving on. He was doing everything right. It was just really tough to get in ahead of Kyogo. We can't rewrite the past here. As much as we might all love Big George, as we might like hearing how much he loved the club and didn't want to leave, whatever, for any fault of our own, we can't rewrite history and say that Kyogo wasn't keeping him out the team for a reason. So he did confirm that he changed his agent, ended up getting his move. He made up his mind that it was his career. He didn't want to lose the love of the Celtic fans, and hopefully they didn't lose the appreciation they had for him. But it was a place that he wasn't feeling happy anymore. It was only the support of the fans singing their song and giving him support that kept him going and made him deliver. He wanted to move on. So we spoke about Michael Nicholson and maybe a fractured relationship with him and George Giakoumakis and the board and George Giakoumakis, and he did touch on that, because he said if they said to him if he prove himself, they would sit him down in the summer and give him what he deserves. And on quote, he says, "Of course, that was a lie to bring me there. And when I ended up being top scorer, winning the league, they bought me for $2.5 million. You feel like, okay, I've proved myself, now do your part." And they said no, basically. They offered him £1,000 a week more. That wasn't enough. He said he wanted more than that. They were messing me around. They didn't appreciate me. And at the time, he said, "Don't even make any other offer, because I feel disrespected and you didn't appreciate what I've given for this team and for the fans. The connections I had, I don't care anymore. I'm done with you. Name a price. I'm leaving." So, was not happy about the contract offer the board gave him, only £1,000 a week more on top of what he was already earning. He was off, which ended with him saying that he thinks the relationship between him, Michael, and Ange was very fragile, and it just broke like glass. So he does go on to say that that as a coach, he really did enjoy working under Ange. In fact, he said he was the best manager he ever had in his career. As a person, it didn't matter. Personal relationship, professional relationship, whatever, was very, very different. But he said he's the best manager he ever worked under. Just a shame that it didn't really work out. So revealing the details as to why he left. A lot of it, which I think we put together, we could have jigsawed together at the time. But a lot more honesty coming out here and just saying what happened. So as I said, he's done not too bad since leaving the club, especially at Atlanta, where he done really, really well. 24 goals in 43 games to be precise. But at Cruz Azul, he's not been quite as good. Maybe this is why he's trying to get a move going, because he's not been as electric there. He only has the 9 goals inside almost 40 appearances. He's, don't get me wrong, good assists as well. So goal contributions are there. Hasn't really got going the way he would have liked to if you look at his stats. I think that's why he's looking for this. I think he's trying. I think he realises, yep, I've not started off as well as I'd like here. I'm getting older. What is my market value? Can I get myself a move? Can I attract Brendan Rodgers and Celtic? I don't know, but that's going to be the big one for a couple of weeks, I think. I think this is going to get a lot of people talking. Ultimately, I just don't see it happening. So talking about strikers, we do know that Celtic will be in the market for one this window. We've heard a host of names being linked with the club, and one of them, as we all know, is Matthias Kvaergaard. He has been linked to the club relentlessly. I'm going to keep this short and sweet because I quite frankly can't be bothered with another summer talking about him. We did touch on this on last night's live stream if you want a more in-depth discussion about it, but essentially he has come out and said, I'm ready to leave Brøndby. He is going to be leaving this summer window. He came out on Danish television and basically said, look, listen, I'm ready for the move. I've made my mark at Brøndby. I'm ready to take the next step. So Matthias Kvaergaard will be leaving Brøndby this summer. It's just a question as to whether or not it'll be Celtic. And of course, the other striker we've been heavily linked with over the past couple of transfer windows, and particularly January, where we reportedly got a bid rejected, was Slovan Bratislava striker David Strelic, who apparently was very, very close to joining Celtic, could still be leaving Slovan Bratislava this window, and spoke about a potential move quite recently, like Wiesgarden. He said that he probably will move, but the transfer window isn't open yet, so it will be a while. He is happy, but he's focused on reality. He's happy at Slovan. He feels at home. We haven't spoke about it with management yet, but we'll see how it goes. Maybe even a better offer will come. So he's basically said, listen, if the money comes in, if a better offer comes in, I'm happy to move this window. I'm in no rush, but come and get me somebody. So will that be Celtic? I don't know, but get ready for a big summer of fucking being linked with strikers. It's already kicking off. Right, I have spoken far too much today in this video, so I'm going to wrap things up. If you have enjoyed, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. Let me know all your thoughts and opinions below, and I'll see you all next time.